Yeah, today we're talking about a film came out in 2018. Maybe we should take our hats off because it's not relevant for this. Yes, we...
That's going to make a lot of sense to me.
That's amazing. I didn't even
we could sit there wearing a baseball cap. Hello, you are listening to Off Radar, It's a Movie podcast. I'm James Smith, a professional film and video editor.
I'm James Eatock, a freelance writer and illustrator specialising in 1980s cartoons.
And I'm Neil Brock, aka Nige, the man with two names, former film journalist and currently working in the games industry.
Each week, one of us picks a movie that all three of us either haven't seen in many years or in some cases haven't seen at all.
We each watch the chosen movie, return to the microphone and let you all know exactly what we thought of it.
I'd never really had any interest in watching it and I was proved absolutely right.
I think it's amazing. I really, really love this film.
The film's still a pile of steaming dog shit.
If you fancy joining in and suggesting a movie for us to watch, why not tweet us at Off Radar Podcast
or email us on offradarpod@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, share, and by all means, leave a review.
For now, strap in, turn the volume up, and let's go Off Radar. Hello, welcome to Off Radar. We are back again. I'm James Smith and joined by James Eatock.
Howdy doody.
Howdy doody doody, indeed. What was that?
I don't know where that came from.
Sounded like something from a 90s chick flick.
Howdy doody.
And Neil Brock.
Hello.
Today we're doing a film that came out in 2018, which, firstly, I guess, let's say before anything we say in this podcast, I apologise for all our pronunciations of names, places and people, as we obviously do not speak or read Hindi. Although Nige has been studying it for the last 2 years, I heard.
I know that was English. That's why I call you James Smythe and James E.
Okay. But so yeah. Anyway, we're doing a film called Tumbbad. Tumbbad. Which came out in 2018. And, this has actually been recommended by someone on YouTube. We had a few people recommend this on YouTube at well, I'm just going to read the letters. MPSCQA 7387 on YouTube.
Definitely not a bomb.
No.
Definitely not AI.
Damn it.
Hello.
But yeah, this was...
Hello, I really like Tumbbad. I am not Tumbbad.
This was on the back of RRR and Sada Uduram.
Oh, what a movie.
We've done two Indian films. RRR was obviously, or maybe not obviously to people listening, a Telugu language film, whereas this one is Hindi. So, yeah, and Sada Udam was Hindi as well, I think.
And we watch them all with English subtitles, we hasten to say as well, because our mad skills are not there for foreign languages.
But yeah, first up, I guess, heard of this film before? Either of you? Eatock is nodding his head.
No.
No, Nige seen...
No, I was shaking my head. Nodding would be a yes. Shaking would be a no.
No.
Yes.
I had not heard of this film, had not seen this film, knew nothing of this film going into it. So it was a nice surprise to check out something different with so little background knowledge.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'd not seen anything about it. And I've got to be honest, like my Bollywood or Indian film knowledge is limited, but thanks to you guys we have checked out, well, this is our third one now, and it's been really interesting dipping into
Well, it's unconventional as well. Like what you expect from like Indian cinema is not necessarily a horror film.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was something that a lot of commentators kind of said around this film, that finally Indian cinema has tried to do a horror film right and like more authentically. Because yeah, for a lot of people in the UK, when you talk to them about Indian cinema, they do think that kind of classic Bollywood kind of setup. And I think that kind of some of the things that fall under that umbrella, I suppose, are like big elaborate dance scenes or like English actors kind of really hamming it up as part of it. And yeah, it was nice to see something that was, I guess, more kind of authentically horror kind of cinema, which I didn't expect at all.
No, I didn't either.
I was going to say, dare I say, a lot more. What Nigel was looking for was the word is Western, because it is very much like like Bollywood has always been its own thing. It's own vision, its own production, whereas Hollywood has been this, what it's been. And this feels like Bollywood going, actually, let's take a shot at doing that. And that's, I think...
And I think also it feels... Maybe we're getting into this before a bit too early. It feels low budget as well, which obviously RRR, as a huge comparison, feels incredibly high budget. So, yeah, it's a very different feel. But, yeah, we'll get into a little bit more detail in a second. Just quickly, okay, this is going to be interesting for me trying to read out these actors' names. Directed and written by Rahi Anil Bave, who has done 3 feature films. This one, and Maya Sahaba and Manya. Never heard of either of those. And I don't think they're huge. Starring Soham Shah, who also produced it, Jayat Malashi, and Anita Data Kelkar. And then also, this is the hardest one, Dharinja Paragakaba Jogalaka. And I apologise for all of that, but I'll try my best.
I'm sure you'll get people correcting you in the comments.
Please correct us on how to say them. Send us a voice note on our email address at Off Radar Podcast about how you pronounce them. Thanks. Yeah, this film is available on Amazon in the UK, so you can go and watch it before listening to this. Anitok, you kindly have done us a little synopsis of this.
I have indeed. So here we go. In the village of Tumbbad, in the earliest part of the 20th century, a family build a temple for Hastar, an entity born from the goddess of prosperity, and an entity that is decreed never to be worshipped. Vinayak, his brother, and their mother live with their grandmother, who they keep chained in a separate room. Their lives are blighted by a constant rain due to the temple being built in honour of Hastar. Shortly after the brother dies, Vinayak and his mother leave the village. 15 years later, Vinayak returns to Tumbbad. He discovers his grandmother, now with a tree growing out of her, who, in exchange for her suffering to end, leads Vinayak to Hastar. Descending into the mystical womb of the goddess within the temple, Vinayak steals gold coins from Hastar, kills his cursed grandmother, and flees Tumbbad. As the decades pass, Vinayak finds his life consumed by greed and decides that in order to maintain his wealth, his son must learn how to retrieve the gold coins from Hastar.
पूर्ति की देवी और ये पृथ्वी देवी की कोख है। जब ब्रह्मांड की शुरुआत हुई तो देवी ने इसी कोख से 16 करोड़ देवी देवताओं को जन्म दिया, पर देवी को सबसे ज्यादा प्यार था अपनी पहली संतान से, हस्तर से।
Okay, so opening of this film, like you said about this goddess of prosperity, was that what it's called? Yeah, so we kind of open on this kind of tomb thing CGI animation with some narration, and I've got to say...
It's basically setting the lore of the movie.
But the CGI is straight from the off absolutely terrible. And they got these like coins dropping from it, and it's kind of like... Yeah.
I don't remember it being that bad.
I don't either.
I thought it was really bad. But I think like the point I was just about to make before we kind of got going, is like it feels low budget, and to me the CGI felt low budget, and it's not necessarily a criticism because we don't come back to this kind of CGI look throughout the film. It's just the opening.
It could be, dare I say, and this is me kind of making excuses, sometimes films make a stylistic choice to kind of go between realistic CGI and almost kind of cartoony CGI to kind of create that fantasy element. I've seen it done in like Hollywood films where it's like, modern Hollywood films where at their disposal they've got millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, and yet the CGI is stylized a certain way. So I don't know, maybe they did it by choice, or like you say, maybe because this is probably an independent film with a very small budget, this is all they could muster. So yeah, I think it'd be interesting to look into that at some point.
Right, it costs about $500,000 to make, but they did
the movie.
But they did it over 6 years because
wow!
The amount of time Well, they lost financing a bunch of times. There was like a monsoon as well, which you kind of mentioned, the rain. Basically, the kind of main actor ended up like mortgaging his house and all sorts. A lot of it is, because it was just such terrible weather for such a long period. I thought it was a
rain machine, because I thought that rain doesn't look real. But
that would have cost them $500,000. But yeah, so it was definitely relatively low budget. And I think they actually shot, I'm going through all my trivia already, they shot like 200 minutes worth of this film, but when they got it into the editing room, they were like, this isn't right, and they really stripped it down. I think it ends up being about 100 minutes, so they shaved a hell of a lot off this film. And again, if you're making any film for 6 years, a lot's going to change in terms of what you intended to do. You kind of mentioned the CGI technology may have changed, albeit it wasn't such a prominent part of the film. But yeah, I would certainly classify this. What you think about like Evil Dead being made back in like the late 70s, early 80s kind of time, and even Evil Dead 2, very low budget, and they kind of had to get very creative with all the stuff they did. So yeah, certainly more along those lines.
I'm surprised at how low budget it is. It doesn't feel that.
That is crazy.
Very low budget, and for the type of film it is, it has a lot of. What's the word? Like physical effects. What's that word? It has effects in it that like practical effects. That's the word.
Practical effects.
So, but not only that. The settings and the characters and the actors and for that price, it's an incredible achievement to get a film made for that. If you like it or not is a different thing. But yeah, it's interesting at the start because, like you said, it's so different to what I kind of think about with this sort of Bollywood or Indian cinema. So we see, like rain and shadows and clouds and this low light, and whereas in RRR is probably the biggest comparison we can make. It's all incredibly glossy and it's like the polar opposite and a totally different take on storytelling.
Like RRR feels like a Marvel movie. This feels like an independent horror movie, like as in Hollywood versions, the equivalents kind of thing. Because the start of this movie, I feel like really draws you in, and visually throughout, the tone is amazing. I think visually it really it sets it. It draws you in. It's especially like the first act of the movie. Yeah, it draws you in. There's a lot of mystery. You're trying to figure, and maybe to its detriment, you're trying to figure out what is going on. And yes, the film's subtitled, and we're not fluent in the language. But at the same time, I think it does a good job of saying like, well, there's a bit of mystery here. Who's this old lady?
A lot of handheld shots as well early on, which they've kind of gone for this very raw feel to the start of the film. It's very unsettling. I mean, the fact that we're seeing, quite surprising, this like old bloke basically get jacked off in this.
Yeah, that was in a Bollywood film.
Yeah, surprising.
You got to understand, like that's a really bold thing to do in a Bollywood movie. Like really bold. You just don't get that kind of thing. Like any kind of
it felt almost surrealist. Hint, this part of it.
Yeah, any kind of hint at lovemaking in a Bollywood movie is usually carried out with a musical number or something. And I know this isn't a musical number or that kind of film, but it's very much like that's the equivalent of like going back to the 1970s and watching a film like a Video Nasty or something, where it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe they shot this on film, but it will never go into the cinema because this movie's rated an X or something. That was, I went back and I was like, did I just see that?
Quite surprising.
Of course, you went back and watched it.
Yeah, no, but seriously.
Didn't take long.
But no, seriously. I'm trying to make a serious point here, boys. That's all right. But no, it really, that caught me off guard. And I was like, I couldn't figure it out. So I went back and I was like, yeah, that is definitely what I'm saying. So I wasn't going to bring it up. No. So I'm glad you meant, I wasn't going to bring it up because I was like,
you've brought it up now.
Keep watching. No, because I thought to myself, I must have got that wrong. So for Smith to say it, either we're both wrong and we're going to look like idiots. So that's pretty... Nige, did you believe that was what was happening?
Oh, definitely. And what I love about this film is when they're smoking, you get a little warning on the screen where it's like, smoking is bad for you. But it's like,
I didn't get that.
Oh, I did, yeah. But like wanking off people is fine. Likewise, like stealing from gods, go for it. But no smoking, you naughty people. So.
So, but like, it's not really explained at the beginning, and I guess it's doing that on purpose. It's like part of the structure of the movie. So we're not going to tell you who this old lady is.
Yeah, the mystery.
So you're watching it going, why have they got like an old lady in the? That's why in the synopsis, I thought I'm going to
the old lady.
Straight.
That's my old lady.
It's my old lady.
Wayne's World. And then it's interesting when we first see her as well. It's well done because I like how we don't. The reveal is done well. It's like it's hinted.
There's a lot of shadows.
Yeah, exactly. You don't see this kind of monstrous type woman for a while. So when she does appear, it does have that impact on you. And the other thing I noticed very early on in this film is how much of a small cast there is in this film. Again, comparing it to the other two films that we've seen. But, like generally speaking, I imagine in, big Bollywood films, it feels like you've got so many people. But in this, it's like stripped down bare to like literally, like you said, a family. And it's obviously, I think, the overall message of this film, it comes up right at the start, right? It's basically about evil, greed and money. And
greed is bad.
And it's not subtle in the slightest with that because it's basically you go and steal some treasure off a monster later in the film and then, it's bad. And it, it's like a reflection of, society and there's nothing kind of subtly done about that, but it's very
well. We're not going to jump to the ending yet, but the ending of the film basically is where the film takes a moral stance, which is like fair enough. But
I think for me, I didn't really get it that much in terms of like the whole greed side until that ending piece that it doesn't.
Oh, right.
It kind of. I just thought like he's just trying to get stuff. He's trying to earn money. I didn't really get it so obviously until that kind of third act when it was like, oh wait a minute. Like as he sort of slowly gets older through the film, it kind of gets more obvious. And obviously when he has like he speaks to there's people coming to him to try and earn money, and obviously the relationship with his family and his wife and everything else. But obvious by the time you get to the end of the film, but it wasn't that obvious to me early on.
Oh, that's interesting.
No, the only reason I picked up on it was they give you that lore at the beginning that Hastar was born from the goddess of prosperity, and he chose greed. So it was one of those things where it's like she hid him from the other gods in order to keep him alive, and then when the temple was built for him by the people that were told never to celebrate him or whatever, then that kind of manifested that kind of underground womb area where he exists and can grant, not grant wishes, but like people attempt to steal his, people who see greed is like, oh, we'll steal his gold coins and become forever wealthy. And obviously you do that and you don't succeed, then you become cursed. So they could have explained, if they'd explained who the grandmother was at the beginning, without maybe not going into too much detail, but saying that she'd been cursed because of greed. I think even just a throwaway line like that would have enabled, like Nige said, you get a better understanding of the film's narrative of just like, oh right, I can see what they're doing here. This movie is about greed, because it's only obvious if you kind of really kind of pay attention to the start of the movie, but even then it drifts away from that. And like I say, if they'd said the grandmother was cursed because of greed, but not explained why, then you'd been like, okay, so what? And then eventually you would have found out, right, okay, she attempted to get the stuff from Hastar, and then I think it would have made a lot more sense because really,
I think one of the things they do, what they try and do in this film though, is they try and centre the story around the main guy, Vinayak, which is really interesting because he is almost like a bit of an anti-hero in this film.
Absolutely.
He's a bit like a Walter White.
Yes, that's a really good point.
He's like he's trying to do it for his family, trying to do it for him.
Yeah,
but ultimately he gets caught up within this. The greed of going back for more and more.
Well, also, you get that sense of like for him, it's like the adventure, the excitement, the forbidden fruit, as it were. You're not supposed to do this, and like it's like an easy solution for his problems. Whereas other people around him would seek out, right, well, I've got to do this to earn money in order to. He wants that instant wealth, that gratification, and so he chooses this shortcut, which is incredibly dangerous, of course.
Modern society. by the way.
Yeah, there
Just
you go. Yeah.
Oh, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to do my own podcast. Earn my riches.
We're just talking about
just basically something both of us. But no, that's
Jesus Christ.
No, I think the film does kind of go down that part. Like, I think Smith described him as the anti-hero is like a really good point, because he's not particularly likable in the movie.
No.
And I don't mean like he's I don't like him because of the way he acts or something. That's his character. It's you
question his decisions, don't you? And the way he, I mean, obviously much later in the film,
you really
the way he treats his son. But yeah, exactly. Like, even so, he obviously is a kid to begin with.
Well,
but,
this is the thing. As a kid, he's kind of like he comes from a really like deprived background.
Yes.
Like, he sees his mum's basically slaving away and getting screwed for it, and he's like, when we get an opportunity, we've kind of got to take it. But like you say, that greed, that early greed, causes his brother potentially to hurt himself, and die.
Yes, die,
and so straight off from the bat, it's kind of like, it doesn't necessarily get rewarded. And his mum sort of reacts by him, like giving him the gold coin, being like, fine, have this kind of gold coin. She almost like disowns him, doesn't she? And just going back to the grandmother, it feels like when the grandmother's first introduced, it's almost like it's a character called grandmother. Like, it's just, it's an old woman, and they just call her grandmother. It doesn't feel like there definitely is that kind of family relationship.
No, that's the thing.
You do learn there is, but yeah, and again, he almost gets taken out by the grandmother early on. So again, you feel like, you're supporting him, you're backing him, you're like, go on, get out of this situation, make something of yourself. And then finally, he kind of starts to, but as you say, it's almost like the sort of dark roots start to kind of manifest around him, like the way he treats his partner, the way he's away for so long, like his relationship with his friend that ends sort of quite dramatically and that kind of stuff. And he's sort of an adulterer as well. There's lots of bits.
The one thing I would
no, go ahead.
Coming in on that point that I noticed really in this film is how unempowered women are in general in this film. We talk about like strong female leads or strong females in film. In this film, it feels like almost the opposite. Like the grandmother is obviously, like been kind of like in prison.
I'm pretty sure the grandmother's played by a man as well, in terms of underneath
okay.
the
but the two women that are kind of having this almost like vying for him, it's him playing them off. It's not that like I know one of them like later on kind of almost gets a comeuppance, but I just found that really interesting. I don't know if that is a deliberate thing.
Well, that's the thing. I know where you're going with this. It's like you can say, is that culturally the way they're telling the story, or is that just a film and this is the story they're telling? Because
I don't know.
We've seen it.
Obviously, there's been a lot of a lot of press and news about women, especially in India, over the last few years, and some horrific cases. And I don't know if this is trying to represent that in any way whatsoever, or if I'm just maybe reading too much into it.
Well, it's difficult to tell, like you say, in the sense of if the women are portrayed a certain way in this movie, and there's no kind of heroine stood tall at the end. This is going to, like, this may be really kind of box ticking here, but imagine if he had a daughter instead. Do you know what I mean? That's where you kind of, if it's the daughter in the end that, as we say, that is the conclusion of the film.
It's a boy.
It is, and again, that might be a culture thing, or just the way the script is written. You have to get into the mind of the person writing the film and making it to go like, well, why did you give him a son? It could be just like, I gave him a son. Why did it's a very tricky thing.
Sorry, I don't think there's that much on it. And it's like, you look at The Thing, for instance. There's not a female character in that. In Shawshank, there's barely a female character in that. I just think the way the story,
it's just the way it is.
It's about him, and it's about the relationship with his son, and kind of.
But it's more about the way they're treated or portrayed in this film. In The Thing, it doesn't focus on that whatsoever. I mean, in fact, there's probably not a woman in The Thing, right?
There's kind of this mentality that he has to be the breadwinner, but then you kind of recognise when he goes away, she sets up her own business, doesn't she? Like, I can't remember what it is, like something to do with flour or making things, and he gets angry, but then they go upstairs and get down with that thing. But yeah, it's always like it's primarily about him. It's his story. Yeah, let's be honest. And he kind of carries the weight of the film because of
definitely.
That. So
he's very good in it as well, especially when the older him. In I would say in chapter 2, especially, I think he. I didn't like this guy. So
he definitely
the actor
gets
in the script
worse through it. Like you start to turn against him. Absolutely.
पर हमने उसे जगाया ही क्यों?
क्योंकि अस्तर का शाप हमारे लिए वरदान है.
One thing I didn't mention early on, which the music starts off very understated in this film. Like in the first act, it's very like what you would expect from a horror film. And what happens quite interestingly in like later acts is you get epic moments in the music track, so it feels like much more like what we've seen, you know, in other kind of Hollywood or Bollywood, films. But then they almost have these little kind of montagey moments where the music like kind of tells you part of the story. It's like, oh, now he's done this and blah, 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 which to me felt really out of place. Like, you know, like in this film.
But that's Bollywood going back to its roots. Almost. I know.
I know.
Yeah. You can.
I know exactly why, and you know, like some people will really enjoy that, but for me, like if you're making this sort of
westernized
film,
Bollywood film,
western
like,
film, like when you chuck that in, it just felt like, oh wow, what's going on here? Why?
Yeah, it definitely pulls you out of the moment. It's just like, oh, now we're getting the, you know, because the funny thing about that is, you know, the film starts as a story told by Vinayak to his son, like here's what happened in the past, kind of thing. You know, majority of the film. So for it to suddenly have a little musical number or a musical narrative, it's like there may have been a better way to do this with just like an inner monologue or something. You know, I don't think you needed to have a song. But I again, that's almost like a culture thing with the movie that we're talking about.
Well, it's quite interesting you say that, because the kind of person who did the score was actually a Dane. And someone who's best known for doing music for computer games and the games industry. And a game you guys may have even heard of, like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
So, and also the Hitman series as well, which I think certainly was adapted into a film later on. So I would imagine then, based on the comments you've kind of given there, that it was probably like kind of the direction from the director to kind of say, this is kind of what I want for this. And he obviously went away and composed it.
Oh, absolutely. So,
interesting. And I mean, and it, you know, it's very good. Don't get me wrong. Like
Jesper Kid,
you just get these three different like tones to the film. Like I said, understated, big epic, and the montagey sort of more Bollywood traditional thing. Which I don't know.
The funny thing is, when you think about like montages, which has happened in films we've discussed or even films we love, you know. Rocky has a montage with a group of people singing "Gonna Fly Now." You know what I mean? It's like, that's you know, that's basically, we can see what's happening. We can see he's improving as an athlete, but it's like "Gonna Fly Now," and it's like, we get it. Or you know, Rocky 5. You get these moments where it's like just telling us,
go for it.
Go for it. Rocky 4, he is literally living in America.
Yeah, it's a slightly different thing. Let's see if we get that Nige. But no, I think like kind of just pulling off into a tangent, just like this movie, regardless of like certain issues I have with it, I feel like tonally throughout it's really well done. It maintains that horror aspect, that gloom, that you, again, maybe it's unfair to keep comparing it to a Western independent horror film, but it just feels
maybe
like a really well made movie in that sense, as in you never feel like you're in another movie at any point. It feels perfectly kind of balanced throughout. It's like, I get what this movie is trying to do visually, especially, and like we talked about, like the atmosphere, and I thought it does a really good job throughout of doing that.
When you're talking visually as well, I think, you know, like some of the, obviously we talk about how dark and gloomy and rainy it is through most of this film. So when we actually see like the sort of horror scenes, you know, there's big vibrant reds and,
really good use.
You know, like obviously like hell, you know, it's been done in many horror films, but it works really well.
I really like that aesthetic in it.
The aesthetic and the visuals.
The idea of descending into, you know, Hastar, the womb that Hastar exists in. That's like, that's a really good. Almost, it sounds weird to say. Almost feels like a video game. It's like, now you must descend into the womb and get the gold coins from Hastar.
And it's a great shot as they kind of drop down,
because it does that
drop down shot.
And you get the wide shot as well. Yeah,
and then the contrast with the gold, obviously up against the red, and then obviously like the flower that they've made the little dolls, tokens for, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I was just going to mention, like you said about the 3 chapters and the idea that the kind of music change and the tone changes somewhat. Actually, the director kind of came out and said it was also, the 3 chapters was a metaphor for the journey of India as he sees it today. So,
oh wow!
So again, there was a kind of that's almost like hidden meaning, I suppose, in terms of how it was presented. And yeah, I think it's something that was kind of noticeable, as you say, that kind of development over time and like the greed and the change that we see from the very beginning. So we said greed a lot in this so far. Apologies.
Well, yeah, no, and I think they say it a lot with like kind of, and it's interesting when you say about that final chapter, it says something like India is independent, and I thought to myself, well, what's that got to do with this story? Like, I did not pick up on, like that, like what you're saying, and obviously greed I guess is kind of comparing it to, like the kind of colonial thing going over there.
Yeah,
taking some people selling out, like the kind of his friend, like trying to earn the money for like the what was it, the poppies, and kind of again, this, like, he was trying to do something that was inherently bad just to earn some money and kind of escape his squalor and make a living, but at the expense of potentially of other people. And like, what bigger metaphor is there for greed than that? So.
Did you know you can now subscribe to Off Radar It's a Movie podcast on YouTube? You can watch exclusive trailers and listen to brand new full episodes. All links and info in the description down below.
Somebody stop me!
The second act, isn't there, like when his friend basically kind of follows him and discovers about the gold and kind of sneaks down into the womb, and that's pretty, it's kind of like a gory scene, really, like a really gory scene that was, for me, quite unexpected. And then obviously he has to kind of do him a favour by putting him out of his misery. Like, that was kind of like the one true authentic relationship he had with another person, where like the goodness and the friendship and all that kind of stuff. Obviously he's got his partner as well, but for that to be destroyed by basically him going and taking these coins, and you actually see that emotion on him, and he is like really sad to have to be in that position, and shows good emotional range. But yeah, again, in a film that has quite kind of a limited cast, as we mentioned, you kind of lose a big part of that in that bit. So
yeah, definitely. And actually, just before the third act, we obviously meet the kind of, when we go down into this thing, the crazy monster thing, which we've not actually really spoke about, which kind of grabs coins from almost like
their little pouch,
Hastar has them around its like loincloth kind of thing.
It's a loincloth, yeah.
But the visuals of this monster thing is really good. It's it's quite scary. It's quite a bit of a throwback. It's very devilish. But well done, well visualized and put together, and especially with this budget, you feel like you're in this womb, as you say, which is a really good word. I'll take it as a womb, but whatever it is,
it's
tomb.
It's like a the thing is, like, it's a mystical. It's almost like you build the. They built the temple celebrating Hastar, and so it's almost like by celebrating him, instead of being hidden from the world, he manifests in a certain part of this temple. But obviously, so it is like a womb, because he is technically supposed to be hidden in the womb of the goddess of prosperity. So yeah, I really like that kind of aspect of it, where you're kind of tapping into this ancient lore, but this religious lore almost, and then bringing it into a physical form. And like you said earlier, it's like that kind of hellish setting works so perfectly. It's not like some dimly lit cavern that he's descending into and there's the monster Hastar. It's like, oh no, he's descending into like this hellish pit, Hades or something, trying to grab these gold coins because he's a greedy little bugger. So yeah, absolutely.
And the fact he's like almost taking his son there to kind of train him.
Well, he basically trains him, because he
trains him.
Yeah,
he's in the back garden, like climbing the rope and learning how to do everything.
Yeah, but like he's like trying to push him, but also his son is kind of like learning a bad example from his father, really.
Well, it's where greed, greed corrupts, and it's like the father wants, as I said in the synopsis, the father, yearns for kind of that those gold coins and wealth and the shortcuts to prosperity and all that. It's just like, right, I'm going to get my son to do it because, he's younger, more agile and that kind of thing, putting his son's life at risk. It's just like, wow, okay, so you're a shit dad.
Yeah.
Which, obviously we see throughout the film anyway.
It's amazing, like, when you see the chest of gold that he's got and how much he's got, and it's like, how much is enough?
Yes.
And it's like his son finally kind of comes up with this, like, a big idea of, like, well, why don't we just take more of these, like, dolls, which essentially distract the kind of devil whilst they pinch the coins from him. If we take loads, then we'll have more time. We can like steal his loincloth, and then we have to
like
worry
a nice
about
little
it.
twist.
Oh, it's an amazing twist. It's a bit almost like jaw dropping in the sense of suddenly he's not as smart as he thinks he is, and all bets are off, and they're in this like horrific environment where. Yeah, how are they going to get out? And it kind of twists it on its head a little bit, I would say.
Yeah, basically, Hastar clones itself into numerous others. It's just like, oh, right, okay, now we're screwed.
It felt a bit like The Descent in the sense of like they're trapped like underground. There's all these like creatures crawling around.
What a great show!
It's really well done because you feel so claustrophobic being down there. Like you feel like you're down there with them, and then all of a sudden, you got all of these creatures. One was scary enough, but the fact that you've got all of them kind of like manifesting out of the walls of the womb, like almost being like birthed. It's really disturbing, but it's really well done. And obviously, we do get that scene. Was this? I think it was before it where his son like tries to push it and basically he beats his son, which is really quite hard to watch because we know that this guy is like driven by the greed and stuff. He's obviously like trying to teach him a lesson.
Doesn't he like give one of the gold coins to like the mistress because he's like, hey baby, you're going to be my lady one day, and she sort of has a little smirk on her face and she's like, well, I'll take a gold coin kind of thing. And
the one thing I don't quite understand. You say about, this big chest of the gold coins. You would expect him to be living this like almost like luxurious life if he's like got that like wealth and richness, but it doesn't seem like that. It's like,
I don't know, like it might be one of those things where, we get it in the Western world where someone makes a lot of money, but they get the tube to work or they cycle or they live in a normal house or something, but it's like, oh, I've got this wealth. It's just I know what you're saying, like, because obviously he lives in rather poor conditions.
But for a man who's like driven by this, you would think that he would.
It's a tricky
it's almost like the collecting's more than the spending kind of thing. It's like he's,
I guess,
again,
like the thrill of the hunt,
because most people are rich because they're very frugal with their money, and he's almost like that. He's almost like saving it for this rainy day that's never going to come. And they kind of say like the mansion, obviously the original one is like dilapidated and falling down, where he's living is in a very sort of similar position. And it's almost like the money means influence and power, but doesn't actually mean spending. And it's and again, like maybe this is
interesting.
I'm not quite sure what the intention was there, but again, it just kind of shows that it can't bring happiness. Like wealth does not always bring happiness. It just brings this hunger and desire for more.
And I think him training his son to do the adventures, both because his son is, like I say, younger, more agile, etc. But also I think it's that living vicariously through his child. It's like, now my child is going to have these adventures. And it's almost like, bad example, like playing a video game. It's like, right, go down, do this, do that, and then you're going to keep doing this until, I leave this earth and we'll have even more money, but I won't be able to spend it. You can't take it with you, as they say. But I thought the conclusion of this movie is like really good, where, the son escapes and you're like, oh, well, the father bit the dust, and then the father turns up and he's now what the grandmother was. He has been cursed by Hastar, and so he's like,
but he has the loincloth, doesn't he?
He has, and he says to his son, like, take all this, and his son
take it.
His son doesn't take it.
He doesn't take the treasure
and sets him on fire.
And thus, but that's the
classic.
That's the moral of the story, isn't it? He breaks the cycle of greed. That's the
family curse, essentially, which they brought on themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. He breaks the family curse, and it's the film's moral is not subtle. It's like, greed is a bad thing. You must.
It's not subtle.
But I don't think the dark side, though, hasn't he? Like he's been exposed to everything, and he's like, wait a minute. I see how bad this is, and he probably knows he's got a big chest of gold when he goes back. But he kind of sees it and thinks, I don't need to do this. There's nothing to gain from this. And it's finally someone kind of sees the light, and it's really nicely done. Like you say, that final scene, it kind of builds up, and then it's probably bigger than what I expected in terms of an ending, and like you say, there's that twist as well. And yeah, I think it really kind of makes it in the end.
Have you got any trivia, Nige?
I have actually got a little bit of trivia.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I touched upon a few bits about this. So obviously the film itself was cheap to make, so less than $500,000 US, and it got released, and then it kind of got re-released as well, and it certainly made at least 4 times what it cost, although the exact numbers are a little bit all over the place. But the kind of main actor, the producer star, Shoam Shah, actually had to sell his house and his car just to complete the film. The film kind of went to the floor, so to speak, as they've said here, 3 times, was optioned by 7 production companies who backed out. Principal photography started in 2012, and bear in mind this film came out in, I think, like... well, it only finished being shot in 2015. Did it actually come out? It came out in 2018 as well. There's a huge amount of time between the start and it actually being done. And I mentioned like the monsoon, the rain being real. It took 3 years to complete the monsoon shoot because it was so delayed and there were so many problems.
That's mad.
But was it all worth it? Well, yeah, it was the highest re-release in India cinema history. It did extremely well. It was the first ever Indian film to open the Venice International Film Critics Week as well. So it kind of got that international recognition. But yeah, it took 6 years to shoot this film. And actually where they shot some of the film at the start was actually a location that people hadn't actually visited for over 100 years. It was just... So
no way.
Location Scout, big thumbs up for them.
Great job.
But the film itself, what is it, Rani Anil Bhav actually heard the film's story in like 1993 from a friend, and he wrote the first draft in 97 when he was only 18. So it's like us being in like college or something like that, being like, I'm going to write a film. And eventually he finally got to the point where he could make it, and lo and behold, Tumbbad was the final result of that. And he actually kind of said, because whilst this film was recognised at the Venice Film Festival and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't submitted by the Indian film industry for, say, the Oscars or anything like that. And Shah's been asked since about this. It was like, do you not feel like it should have got more recognition? It's done really well on like streaming platforms and everything else now, hence why so many people were asking for us to review this. And he said, like when asked, he said it's because of people like the person asking the question, like a fan, and your love of the film is why it's still alive. Like he was coming from an interview and they said, are you upset about the Oscars and stuff like that? He said it's fine, like we're Hindustani people, like Desi people, and we made this film for our own people, and when I receive love from those people, it's amazing. Like when I ever post anything on social media, he went on to say, like no one's like, oh, you're looking good, or nice glasses, or nice watch, like all the sort of material things he's got. I know that happens a lot to Etok when he's posting on the internet. They're all like, hey, Etok, nice watch. But instead he gets a comment like, when are you going to make Tumbbad 2? Like, please re-release it.
No way.
And it was the love of the fans who was so passionate about the film, obviously following that first release, the sort of word of mouth that got it picked up by so many people. They brought it back to cinema like 6 years later, and it made a lot of money. So a lot of love was shown to the cult following, I suppose, but that turned into more than that, like grassroots love for an Indian horror film. So yeah. And that is a bit of Nige's trivia for you.
Nice, really good trivia, great trivia. Who wants to kick this one off?
Great trivs. I think James Smith, you're in touch with your YouTube community, so what have you got to say to them?
You know, go for it.
Oh God. Okay, so
I love you guys, but fuck you.
I love you guys. Thank you for I'm really pleased to see like 3 very different, and I know it's different people on there here recommending these films, but I'm really pleased to see all these different films that I would never watch, to be totally honest, because like it's not really on my radar, pardon the pun.
It's off radar, Smith.
But I've enjoyed watching all 3 of these for very different reasons. And first of all, I've got to say, what an incredible achievement to just get this film made after everything you've just said, like $500,000 dollars, whatever it was, and to have it to that production value with, very good actors, great mise en scène, setting, the womb or whatever, really well done.
Great womb.
But so yeah, music, really good music.
That might be my chat-up line.
Great womb. I really like your womb.
Great womb, darling.
But yeah, I think for me, I've got to be honest, and I hope you continue to listen to us after this saying that, we got 2 more reviews to go. But for me, I felt the visuals were really good, but I thought the storytelling of this film was really weak. I felt like and it might be a language thing, I'm not sure, but I felt quite lost, and I felt like for most of this film, not a great deal happens, so it felt like quite long and over convoluted to tell this story. The anti-hero thing is really interesting. I think it can be done really well, and it's not that I didn't like the fact it was an anti-hero thing, because like something like Breaking Bad, for instance, it's like so captivating, even though you absolutely despise them, or Succession, lots of people you don't like. So it's not that, but it's that the messaging of this greed thing, for me, is so slammed in the face and not subtle. I think it kind of loses it, and makes it feel kind of naff, and undermines the actual strong messaging that is behind it. It's like, this is a film about greed. Here's a film about greed, and we're going to tell you about greed all the way through this film. And I just think, like, for me, that's just so unsubtle that it just totally lost the whole point of it. So yeah, there's good aspects to it, but I was bored, to be honest. I wanted this film to end. I didn't enjoy this film. I think I really thought Sadao Dan was very good, and I enjoyed RRR. But yeah, this was nowhere near them for me. So it's a very low 4 out of 10.
I'll go next if you want.
Isak?
Yeah, again, I think I said this earlier. What I loved was this movie's visuals. It really kind of set a tone. I thought it was a really good horror film. I'm gonna refer to like Hollywood a bit in this, just because I think that is a fair comparison. It's strong enough visually that it would work as a Hollywood film. I think you could see this playing like on TV if it was a Hollywood movie. It's just visually it's that strong, I think. I like the lore. Unlike you, I
am the law.
Oh God!
Sorry, Judge Shrek.
Unfortunately, these two don't know the difference between law and LORE. So I love the law, LORE.
He loves the law.
Yes, I love the law.
But I am the law.
Oh, God, right. So I'm not going to say anything about the fucking law.
Don't talk about the law.
Right, okay. But unlike you, I really enjoyed the greed aspect of the film. Like, I understand what you're saying. It was like in your face, but I thought it actually worked. The thing I think works against the film is that, and I think this kind of backs up your point, Smith, is that all it has is greed. There's really little to no subplot. There's no, you think, there's something else that you could build upon. Yeah, interactions with other characters come and go, but as we've said, it's a very limited cast. So you think, because the whole reason he trains his son is kind of for a limited time, because that temple, the land itself, they revealed towards the end of the film is going to be taken over by, I forget, it's like a corporation or something. They're going to take over.
Given away, essentially. He's losing his ownership and his right of access almost.
Yeah, so it's a case of got to get in there now, got to get all the gold coins. So it's very much a last minute thing, and you think, I would like to have seen that built upon more, like as a subplot, where, I don't know, like maybe you cut back to other characters, because the danger of a film like this where you just follow one character throughout is, if you don't tell a story with enough kind of moments, it becomes very dragging. And one of the first things notes I made post watching of this was, I felt this movie is so badly paced. Like, the start is really strong, the end is really strong, but the middle drags so badly. Like I say, I love the whole theme of greed and everything, but like Smith, I think you could have shaved like an hour off this. Nige said in his trivia that this movie took so many years to make, and it went on the cutting room floor numerous times, and was, they shot so much material. Amazingly, it still looks like a very competent movie in terms of, you don't feel like you're watching a bunch of different movies. Sometimes, when someone gets back in and another director works on it, it goes all over the place. The problem with this movie is it just feels so kind of one track. Like, like Smith, at times during that, I was just like, can we get to the end of this movie? Because we know where we're going. I couldn't, as much as I'd like the anti-hero lead, I couldn't get into the characters. I found it really difficult. Like Smith, I don't know if that's a language barrier. I don't know if it's, culturally ill-advised of me. But at the same time, I loved RRR, and those characters were so charming. And yeah, it's a different kind of movie, but I loved those two leads in that movie, and I was just like, and all the characters, even the bad British and stuff. To me, that was a really gripping movie. I will say another thing I like about this movie. I like what this movie represents. The fact that this is trying something new. It almost feels like a moment in Bollywood cinema where it's like, this was the first of maybe many movies. So I admire what this film is trying to do. I just don't think it executes it that well. Visually, really strong. But I think if this was a Hollywood movie, I think it would have just gone straight to DVD kind of thing. I know it sounds harsh, but
especially in a world where there's Blu-rays, yeah.
if the movie, there's genuinely like a 9 out of 10 movie in here, but it's just so bogged down in that kind of second chapter that I was just like, oh my god. So yeah, I'm kind of with Smith. I'm going for like a blimey, I've got it written down. I'm like, do I say it out loud, or does Hastar come and get me if I say it? But yeah, I think I'm going to go for a 4 out of 10.
Okay, yeah.
Wow. But I really, there's something in here that's so good.
Yeah, I get it. Nige.
So I'm a big fan of horror films. Like I mentioned Evil Dead a couple of times. I used to love like Reanimator and things that like really tried to do something a bit different. Even like kind of schlocky films, and you go back and watch the like Dawn of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead, stuff like that.
A lot of zombies.
Well, yeah. Any kind of horror really, but I would say like some of the films that I've appreciated most recently in terms of like doing original cinema are things like Barbarian, for instance, a film that I didn't know much about, shot on a relatively low budget and just had something different about it. And I think this film succeeds in that. Like Tumbbad is an interesting take on a story that most of us aren't familiar with, that obviously has influences from like classic horror. And when I first saw about this film and I saw the like body horror was one of the things that was listed as this, I thought, oh god, it's not one of these like Saw style films or just like gratuitous gore and all that kind of stuff. And I was really pleasantly surprised it wasn't. And there was a bit more to this. And yes, there's a couple of moments that are a bit wince inducing in terms of like how graphic they are, but I thought it actually balanced it really well. But I will absolutely agree that it does lose its way quite badly in the middle. Like the intro, really interesting. You kind of get sucked into the story. You're a little bit confused about what's going on, but you're keen to kind of to discover more. And the end, like, it almost has a bit of like the reverse Edge of Tomorrow in, I think the end is so good that it makes up for a lot of for some of the deficiencies earlier in the film. So I actually came out of it thinking, you know what, I enjoyed this film. And like, I think the lead is brilliant in this. Like I was reading, he almost did like a reverse Tom Hanks, and like he put on like 18 kg for this film, and then because it took so long for it to be shot in the end, I think he had to be like overweight for like 6 years or something ridiculous. So credit to them. And I think they kind of drive it forward. And yeah, you start off by being on their side, then slowly as the film progresses, the anti-heroes we've discussed. I think that his son does a really good job. I think his friend's really good. I think there is a lot to like about this film. And like you said, the visual style is really sharp. But yeah, certainly they could have done a bit more with the middle, maybe develop some of the female characters in it. But again, it's not trying to be more than it is. Some films, it's just like, this is a horror film. There's going to be the comeuppance. There's going to be the sort of tense moments. We will get to that point. Even films like The Babadook, for instance, it's just a very simple, there's something bad going on, and that's how the film progresses. So I will not begrudge it that. And I can see why it's got such a big following in India, especially. And I think it'll do okay around the world. I think there are fans of this. I know, like, the Jameses tonight wasn't necessarily for them, but for me, I'm going to say it's a 7 out of 10 film for me. I think it does enough to be an interesting horror film Would I go back and watch it again? Possibly not. But would I show it to someone and maybe sit with them and watch it to see their experience? Perhaps I would, yeah. So for that reason, I'm going to go with a 7.
Oh, nice. And yeah, guys, what did you think of Tumbbad? Did you love it? Did you think it was boring and slow like me?
Did a tree start growing out of you during the middle of this film?
I felt like it did with me.
Like it.
Did you end up with a pocket full of gold and a mouth full of glee? Full of what?
Like Nige. Yeah, get in touch. Email us on offradarpod@gmail.com. Tweet us at offradarpodcast. Comment on YouTube. Keep commenting. Let us know what to watch next. We'll speak to you next time on Off Radar. We need your help. We are looking to grow Off Radar and release more and more high quality content. Please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pod. And why not share with your friends and loved ones?
Help me help you.